The arrival of the Galactic Empire. The alert came without warning, shattering Earth's tranquil evening. In the heart of the Global Command Center, Commander Sarah Blake paced the floor, her boots echoing against the steel deck. Around her, officers scrambled, their faces illuminated by the glowing consoles that painted the room in shades of cold blue. Above Earth's orbit, an anomaly had appeared, a fleet of colossal ships moving with precision that seemed almost impossible. "Commander," Lieutenant Raj Patel called out, his voice laced with tension. "The fleet has crossed lunar orbit. Velocity, still increasing. No signs of conventional propulsion." His brow furrowed as he tapped at his console. "This isn't human-made." Sarah clenched her fists. The fleet's silhouette had already confirmed that. These ships, immense and angular, radiated an energy signature that Earth's most advanced instruments couldn't decipher. They were larger than anything humanity had ever built, city-sized leviathans, drifting like gods in the void. "Open communications," Sarah ordered. "Let's see if they're here to talk or—" She let the sentence hang, the unspoken destroy lingering in the room. A technician nodded, toggling a switch. Static filled the room before a voice emerged, smooth and chillingly articulate. "People of Earth," it began, its tone neither friendly nor hostile, but coldly superior. "We are emissaries of the Arcanist Dominion, the Galactic Empire. Your planet has been observed, evaluated, and deemed suitable for integration. Surrender your sovereignty and embrace our dominion, or face annihilation." Gasps rippled through the command room. Sarah's face hardened. The arrogance in the voice made her blood boil. She grabbed the microphone, her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. "This is Commander Sarah Blake of the United Earth Defense Force. We are a sovereign species and will not be coerced. If you wish to engage in diplomacy, state your intentions clearly." The voice replied instantly, as if it had expected resistance. "Diplomacy is unnecessary. Your kind, though primitive, holds potential. Integration is for your benefit. Refusal is ill-advised." The line went dead. Sarah turned to her officers, her mind racing. "Get me Admiral Carson at Fleet Command. Prepare all orbital defenses. I want a full analysis of their technology, weaknesses, strengths, everything. Move." The galactic threat. Within hours, Earth's leaders convened a global summit. Holograms of presidents, prime ministers, and generals flickered into existence in the United Nations Emergency Chamber. The message was clear. Humanity was facing an existential threat. Dr. Elena Vargas, Earth's leading astrophysicist, presented the preliminary findings. The energy readings from the fleet suggest technology far beyond our comprehension. Their propulsion systems manipulate space-time itself, allowing for speeds we've only theorized. Their weapons— She paused, her expression grim. "Let's just say they make our most advanced nukes look like fireworks." A silence fell over the chamber. Finally, General Tobias Kane, a grizzled veteran of Earth's past wars, broke it. "So what you're saying is, we can't win?" Elena hesitated. "Not conventionally." "All due respect, Doctor," Sarah interjected, her tone resolute, "but history isn't written by those who give up before the fight. They called us primitive. Let's use that to our advantage." Earth's first move. Back at the command center, Sarah reviewed the Arcanist fleet's trajectory. They were holding just outside Mars orbit, as if waiting. "For what?" "Commander," Paddle said, pulling up a new data feed. "We're detecting probes, dozens of them, spreading out through the solar system. They're mapping us." Sarah's lips tightened into a grim line. "They're not just mapping. They're cataloging threats, preparing a strategy." "What do we do?" "We become invisible," she replied. "Initiate blackout protocols. Cut all active signals from our installations. No electronic chatter. I want Earth to look like a blank slate to them." Across the globe, satellites went dark, communication arrays powered down, and radar systems switched to passive mode. Earth's technological hum ceased, leaving the planet in eerie silence. A glimpse of hope. Meanwhile, in a secluded underground facility, a team of scientists and engineers worked tirelessly. The Arcanist ship's energy signatures held a peculiar pattern. An Achilles heel, perhaps. Dr. Vargas and her team pored over the data. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "Their shields are designed to deflect energy-based weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams, anything advanced. But physical projectiles. Their systems might not even register them as threats. You're saying we could use, what, bullets?" One of her colleagues asked incredulously. "Not bullets," Vargas said, a sly smile forming. "Rocks. Kinetic impacts. Something so simple, so primitive, they wouldn't see it coming." Word of the discovery spread to the command center. Sarah's eyes lit up as the plan began to form in her mind. If their greatest strength is their reliance on advanced technology, she mused, then our greatest strength will be their underestimation of us. She turned to Patel. "Reconfigure our railguns. Forget energy projectiles. Load them with dense, inert materials, iron, tungsten, anything heavy. And make sure the Navy prepares our submarines for stealth strikes." The countdown begins. As Earth prepared for its first true interstellar conflict, the clock ticked ominously. The Arcanist Dominion had given humanity 72 hours to surrender. In those fleeting hours, engineers converted outdated ballistic systems, soldiers trained with old-world tactics, and civilian factories churned out crude but effective weapons. "Commander," Patel reported, "the fleet is moving. They've crossed Mars' orbit. Estimated time to Earth, 36 hours. Sarah stood before the command room's main screen, watching the massive ships creep closer. She took a deep breath. "Let them come. We'll show them what it means to underestimate humanity." As the first stars of evening emerged over Earth, humanity braced itself for a battle unlike any in its history. Against an enemy that spanned galaxies, Earth stood alone. But it stood resolute. And for the first time in her career, Sarah Blake felt something unfamiliar in the face of impossible odds. Hope, the Empire's terms, and Earth's defiance. The ultimatum came as humanity prepared for the storm. At precisely 900 hours, a global transmission interrupted every screen, every device, and every active channel on Earth. The face of the Arcanist emissary filled the airwaves, an eerily human visage with skin that shimmered faintly like polished stone. His eyes glowed faintly, a subtle reminder of the technology that coursed through his body. "People of Earth," he began, his voice resonant and dripping with condescension. "Your silence has been noted. You have 24 hours remaining to accept the honor of integration into the Arcanist Dominion. Do so willingly, and your transition will be peaceful. Resist, and the consequences will be beyond what your fragile minds can comprehend." Commander Sarah Blake watched the broadcast from the Global Command Center, her jaw set, hands resting firmly on the edge of the console. Around her, the air was thick with tension. "Shut it off," she ordered, her voice cutting through the silence. Lieutenant Raj Patel quickly complied, cutting the transmission mid-threat. "What's the move, Commander?" he asked, his tone heavy. Sarah took a deep breath. "The same as it's always been. We hold the line. But we're going to need more than grit and determination. Dr. Vargas, what's the status on our countermeasures?" The weakness in advanced technology. In an underground facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Vargas had been working around the clock. Her lab, a chaotic maze of wires, blueprints, and hastily assembled prototypes, buzzed with activity. The Arcanist fleet was a marvel of technology, its energy shields impervious to traditional Earth weaponry. But they had one glaring vulnerability. They had never accounted for simplicity. "Commander," Vargas said, appearing on the command center screen via a secure channel. Her face was smudged with grease, and dark circles hung under her eyes, but her expression brimmed with excitement. "We've done it. We've tested the railguns with physical projectiles, solid tungsten rods, No guidance systems, no advanced tech, just kinetic force. The shields didn't even react. The rods went straight through. Sarah's lips twitched into a small smile. What's the yield? Enough to punch holes in their hulls the size of a bus, Vargas replied. But there's more. We've also modified the satellite network. They're going to release fields of conductive material into orbit. Copper wire, steel shards, anything to shore out their systems. Their energy-based technology will overload. The room hummed with murmurs of approval. Sarah raised a hand to silence them. Excellent work, Doctor. Begin mass production immediately. How long until the satellites are ready to deploy? 18 hours, Vargas said confidently. Good. Keep me updated, Sarah said, ending the call. A global stand. The time for secrecy was over. Earth's leaders convened in an emergency session, their holographic forms gathered around the same virtual table. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, all faces of a planet united in defiance. We've received the Arcanist terms, Sarah began, addressing the assembly. They demand unconditional surrender. I say we respond with unconditional resistance. The Russian president, a stern man with an unyielding gaze, nodded. What are the odds of success, Commander? Better than surrendering, Sarah replied bluntly. They're overconfident, and their technology has blind spots. If we hit those weaknesses with precision, we have a chance. The Chinese premier leaned forward, her expression contemplative. A chance is all humanity has ever needed. Let's vote. One by one, hands raised in unanimous agreement. Earth would fight. The final preparations. In the hours leading up to the deadline, Earth buzzed with frenetic activity. Factories retooled assembly lines to produce tungsten rods, not electronics. Old cargo planes were repurposed into kinetic launch platforms, and coastal nations deployed submarines fitted with railgun prototypes. Sarah personally inspected the modifications on one of Earth's most advanced submarines, the U.S. Resolute. Captain James Carter, a seasoned officer with decades of experience, greeted her on the bridge. Commander, I hope you've got a solid plan, Carter said with a wry smile. We hit them where it hurts, Captain, Sarah replied, walking alongside him to observe the newly installed weapon systems. They think we're primitives. Let's show them how dangerous primitives can be. Carter chuckled, nodding toward a crewman loading one of the tungsten rods. Simple and deadly. Just how I like it. The Empire advances. With 10 hours remaining on the Arcanist Ultimatum, their fleet began its final approach. 50 enormous ships moved in unison, each bristling with weapons capable of leveling continents. Earth's orbital defenses, now cloaked in radio silence, awaited their arrival. In the Global Command Center, Sarah stood before a massive tactical display. Status, she demanded. Satellites are in position, Paddle reported. Railgun platforms are armed. Submarines ready. All forces standing by. Sarah's eyes scanned the holographic display of Earth's defenses. This is it, she said, her voice calm but firm. When they enter range, we don't hesitate. Phase 1. Activate the orbital grid. Let's give them a warm welcome. The battle begins. As the first Arcanist ships entered Earth's orbit, the modified satellites sprang into action. Clouds of copper wire and steel shards erupted into space, creating a deadly minefield. The alien ships, their shields optimized for energy attacks, faltered as their systems shorted out. Sparks flew across their hulls, and the formation began to break. Direct hits on their lid ships, Patel shouted. Their shields are collapsing. Phase 2, Sarah ordered. From hidden bases around the globe, railgun platforms roared to life. Tungsten rods, traveling at hypersonic speeds, tore through the weakened ships like paper. Explosions lit the night sky as the first Arcanist vessel disintegrated. Submarine fleet, engage, Sarah commanded. Beneath the waves, the U.S. Resolute and its counterparts launched their strikes. Massive rods fired upward, punching through the alien ships from below. One after another, The invincible vessels began to fall, a shifting tide. In the chaos, the Arcanist emissary appeared on Earth's screens again, his once calm demeanor now twisted with rage. "This resistance is futile," he bellowed. "You cannot withstand the might of the Dominion." Sarah smirked, her reply cutting through the static. "Futile? You're the ones retreating." The broadcast ended abruptly as another alien ship exploded in orbit. The tide of battle was turning. Hope rekindled. By dawn, the once imposing Arcanist fleet was in full retreat. Earth had not only survived, it had triumphed. Against a foe that considered them little more than primitives, humanity had proved that ingenuity and determination could overcome even the most advanced technology. In the command center, cheers erupted as the last alien ship vanished into the void. Sarah, though exhausted, allowed herself a rare smile. "This was just the beginning," she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. "If they come back, we'll be ready." And for the first time in centuries, humanity stood united, no longer afraid of the stars, but ready to claim them. The aftermath of victory. The battle was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Earth's skies cleared, revealing a planet that had defied all odds and emerged victorious against an empire that spanned the stars. Across cities, towns, and villages, humanity celebrated. For a moment, the people of Earth forgot their divisions, their rivalries, and their fears. They were united as a species, triumphant against an enemy that saw them as mere primitives. In the global command center, however, the mood was far from jubilant. Commander Sarah Blake knew this was not the end. She stood before the central console, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of the solar system. The remnants of the Arcanist fleet had retreated to a position just beyond Mars, regrouping and likely plotting their next move. "Status update," Sarah demanded, her voice cutting through the buzz of the room. Lieutenant Raj Patel, seated at the radar station, responded promptly. "The Arcanist fleet is holding steady near the asteroid belt. We've intercepted minimal communications, but they seem to be awaiting reinforcements." Sarah nodded grimly. "They'll be back. And next time, they won't underestimate us. We need to be ready." The gathering storm. In the days that followed, humanity scrambled to strengthen its defenses. Factories that had once produced consumer goods now churned out tungsten rods, copper wire, and railgun components. Every nation on Earth contributed to the effort, pooling resources and knowledge in a way that had never been seen before. Dr. Elena Vargas and her team worked tirelessly to improve Earth's newfound weaponry. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility codenamed The Forge, she led a group of scientists and engineers in designing the next generation of defenses. Elena, one of her assistants, called, "You need to see this." She hurried over to the workstation, where a simulation played on the screen. It showed an Arcanist ship with modified shields, deflecting the tungsten rods that had been so effective in the first battle. "They've already adapted," she muttered, her mind racing. "We'll need something new, something they won't anticipate." Turning to her team, she began sketching on a tablet. "What if we create projectiles that fragment on impact? A single tungsten rod might not penetrate their shields now, but if it breaks apart into thousands of smaller pieces." The team caught on quickly, and soon the lab was buzzing with ideas. Humanity's strength had always been its adaptability, and this was no exception. A call from the stars. While Earth fortified itself, a strange signal was detected from deep space. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, but when the pattern repeated, scientists realized it was deliberate. The message was a simple one, a mathematical sequence followed by a symbol resembling a hand reaching out. "It's not Arcanist," Dr. Vargas said during an emergency briefing. "The frequency is different, and the style of communication is primitive by their standards. It's coming from a system about 12 light years away." "Another species?" Sarah asked, leaning forward. "It's possible," Vargas replied. "And it's likely they've been watching. If they're reaching out now, they might be hoping for an ally." Sarah frowned, her mind weighing the risks. Prepare a response. Use the same frequency. Keep it simple. Mathematics and symbols. Let them know we're open to communication but wary of threats. The message was sent, and the waiting began. Seeds of rebellion. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the ripples of Earth's victory were spreading. On distant worlds under Arcanist rule, whispers of rebellion began to grow louder. Earth's triumph had shown the oppressed species of the galaxy that the Empire was not invincible. On a mining planet called Ilaros, workers armed with nothing but improvised weapons drove away their Arcanist overseers, using techniques similar to Earth's. Radio interference, physical projectiles, and clever tactics, they managed to disable the garrison stationed there. The news reached Earth through intercepted transmissions. Patel played the recording for Sarah in the command center. This is a declaration of independence from the people of Ilaros. A voice announced, crackling with static. We owe our inspiration to the people of Earth. If they can fight, so can we. Sarah felt a flicker of pride, but quickly buried it. This is going to complicate things, she said. The more planets rise up, the harder the Arcanist Dominion will crack down. They might even shift their focus away from us to deal with the rebellions. And that's a bad thing. Patel asked. It is if those planets aren't ready to fight. Sarah replied. We can't just sit back and let them be crushed. Building an alliance. The mysterious signal from deep space finally received a response. The alien species, calling themselves the Tyrellians, introduced themselves as survivors of the Arcanist conquest. Their message was cautious but hopeful. We have watched your defiance and marveled at your ingenuity, the Tyrellians said in their halting, translated message. We too were once free before the Dominion enslaved us. If you seek allies, we are willing to help. Sarah convened an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. This could be our chance to form an alliance, she said. If the Tyrellians have knowledge of the Arcanist fleet or their weaknesses, it could tip the scales in our favor. But how do we know we can trust them? Asked the Japanese Prime Minister. What if this is a trap? It's a risk, Sarah admitted, but we can't fight the Dominion alone. The galaxy is watching us. If we don't take the lead, we'll lose the momentum we've gained. After a tense debate, the Council voted to establish contact with the Tyrellians. An exploratory ship, the Unity, was prepared to make the journey. The return of the Empire. As Earth reached out to potential allies, the Arcanist fleet made its move. Reinforcements arrived, doubling their numbers, and their ships began advancing toward Earth once more. This time, their formations were tighter, their movements more deliberate. They've learned from their mistakes, Patel observed grimly. They're not underestimating us anymore. Sarah studied the display, her mind racing. That doesn't mean they're invincible. Vargas, how are those fragmentation rounds coming along? Ready for deployment, Vargas replied. And we've also upgraded the satellite grid to release electromagnetic pulses. It should disrupt their communications again, but only for a short window. Then we'll make that window count, Sarah said. This is going to be a tougher fight, but we've proven we can adapt faster than they can. Let's show them again why humanity isn't so easily conquered. A defiant stand. As the Arcanist fleet approached, Earth's defenses were ready. The skies bristled with railguns, satellites, and orbital platforms, all armed with the newest innovations. Beneath the oceans, submarines waited like predators, their crews tense but determined. The clock ticked down, and Sarah gave the order. All stations, prepare for engagement. This is our home, and we're not giving it up. The battle for Earth was about to begin, again. But this time, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. It was fighting to ignite a galaxy-wide revolution, to prove that no empire, no matter how advanced, could crush the indomitable spirit of a united people. And as the first railgun fired, sending a volley of tungsten fragmentation rounds toward the Lid Arcanist ship, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Earth had already defied the odds once. Now, they were ready to do it again. The battle for Earth's skies. The Arcanist fleet arrived in overwhelming force, a constellation of steel and fire casting ominous shadows over Earth. Their numbers had doubled, their formations were more disciplined, and their shields gleamed with modifications designed to counter Earth's previous tactics. But the people of Earth were ready. This was their home, and they would not yield an inch without a fight. Commander Sarah Blake stood at the helm of the Global Command Center, her steely gaze fixed on the tactical display. All units, she ordered into the global comms network, brace yourselves. We've proven we can fight. Now, let's show them we can win. The first salvo. The battle began with a symphony of destruction. High above the planet, Earth's satellites deployed their deadly payloads, nets of copper wire, clouds of metal dust, and explosive fragmentation rounds. The Arcanist ships responded with precision, their enhanced shields holding firm against the initial wave of attacks. Shields are stronger this time, Lieutenant Raj Patel reported. The dust clouds are causing minor disruptions, but they've adapted their energy fields. Then it's time to escalate, Sarah replied. Initiate Phase 2. Target their communications network. Across the globe, hidden electromagnetic pulse generators roared to life. Buried deep in deserts, mountains, and forests, these devices unleashed a coordinated EMP barrage aimed at the Arcanist fleet. The result was instantaneous. Flickering lights, erratic movements, and a momentary breakdown in their formation. They're struggling, Dr. Elena Vargas said, monitoring the feed from her underground lab. Their systems weren't designed for this level of interference. Good, Sarah said, her voice sharp with determination. Let's make them struggle more. Railgun teams, fire at will. The railgun assault. From hidden silos and mobile platforms, Earth's railguns unleashed their devastating payloads. Tungsten fragmentation rounds screamed through the atmosphere, tearing into the vulnerable gaps in the Arcanist fleet's defenses. Each projectile split into thousands of smaller shards upon impact, overwhelming even their enhanced shields. Direct hits on their forward lines, Patel shouted over the noise of the command center. 3 ships down, 2 more heavily damaged. But the Arcanists were far from defeated. Their advanced weaponry came to life, beams of energy and bursts of plasma raining down on Earth's defenses. Railgun platforms were obliterated, satellites were vaporized, and entire city grids flickered as the power surges strained the planet's energy reserves. The submarines strike back. While the battle raged in the skies, Earth's oceans became a theater of stealth and cunning. The U.S. Irresolute and its sister submarines glided silently through the depths, their captains communicating with old-fashioned radio signals to avoid detection. Target in range, Captain James Carter whispered to his crew. Load fragmentation rods. Fire on my mark. The submarine's railgun launched a barrage of projectiles upward, punching through the ocean's surface and slamming into the underbellies of the Arcanist ships. Their shields, designed to deflect frontal assaults, failed to account for attacks from below. Direct hit, Carter's weapons officer exclaimed. Their engines are failing. Good, Carter replied, his voice steady. Reload and keep firing. We're not done yet. The turning point. Despite Earth's innovative tactics, the Arcanist fleet's sheer numbers began to take their toll. The skies were filled with smoke and fire as both sides suffered heavy losses. In the Global Command Center, Sarah Blake clenched her fists, her mind racing for a way to tip the scales. Dr. Vargas, she said, activating a secure channel. Do we have any surprises left? Vargas, surrounded by holographic schematics and prototypes, nodded. 1. It's risky, but it might work. Explain. We've been developing a new orbital weapon, Vargas began. A massive EMP burst capable of disabling their entire fleet. The downside. It'll also knock out most of our satellites and electronics. Sarah considered the gamble. If they lost their satellite network, Earth would be blind. But if it worked, it could end the battle in one decisive strike. Do it, she said finally. Prepare the weapon and give me a countdown. The final gambit. As the Arcanist fleet tightened its grip around Earth, the new orbital EMP device, codenamed Nemesis, was activated. Deep in space, hidden among a field of debris, the device came to life, its systems humming with power. EMP ready to fire in 60 seconds, Vargas reported. Understood, Sarah replied. All units prepare for temporary blackout. When this hits, we'll lose most of our electronic systems. Stay on manual operations. The countdown ticked away as Earth's forces braced themselves. The Arcanist ships, unaware of the trap, pressed their advantage, their weapons tearing through Earth's defenses. 5 seconds, Vargas said. 4, 3, 2, 1. Firing. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the Nemesis, sweeping across the battlefield. The Arcanist fleet's lights flickered and died as their systems shorted out. Engines failed, weapons powered down, and the once mighty ships drifted aimlessly in orbit. Earth's forces were not spared. Satellites went dark, railgun platforms fell silent, and the global command center plunged into darkness. For a moment, the planet held its breath. Humanity's resilience. In the silence that followed, Earth's defenders relied on the oldest tools in their arsenal, ingenuity and determination. Soldiers on the ground used radio communication to coordinate their efforts, targeting the now vulnerable Arcanist ships with everything they had. Captain Carter, aboard the Resolute, smiled grimly as his submarine surfaced. "They're sitting ducks now," he said. "Fire everything we've got." One by one, the disabled Arcanist ships fell, their once impervious hulls no match for Earth's relentless assault. A hollow victory. By the time the battle ended, Earth had emerged victorious once again. But the cost was staggering. Cities lay in ruins, defenses were shattered, and countless lives had been lost. In the Global Command Center, as the lights flickered back on, Sarah Blake surveyed the damage with a heavy heart. "We won," she said softly, "but at what price?" Dr. Vargas appeared on the screen, her expression somber. "Commander, we've intercepted a transmission from the Arcanist flagship. They're retreating, but they've sent a distress call. Reinforcements will come." Sarah nodded, her jaw tightening. "Then we need to be ready. This was just the beginning. The next battle will be even harder." As the remnants of the Arcanist fleet disappeared into the void, Earth's people began the arduous task of rebuilding. They had proven that they could stand against the might of the Dominion, but they knew the war was far from over. Humanity had bought itself time, but how much remained uncertain. Echoes of resistance. In the days following the battle, Earth's surface bore the scars of its victory. Cities lay in rubble, communication networks flickered weakly, and the skies were littered with debris from destroyed satellites and alien vessels. But humanity stood unbroken. Across the planet, people came together, clearing wreckage, rebuilding infrastructure, and sharing stories of defiance. The once fragmented nations of Earth had forged a bond in the fires of war, united in their shared determination to survive. A dangerous signal. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, in a secret research facility known as Ice Station Kappa, scientists detected an unusual signal. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, another remnant of the Arcanist fleet's transmissions. But as the signal grew stronger, it became clear this was no ordinary message. Dr. Elena Vargas was called to the site, arriving by helicopter in the middle of a blizzard. She was met by Dr. Emin Khan, the station's lead astrophysicist, who handed her a tablet displaying the decoded transmission. "It's a distress call," Khan explained, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. "The Arcanist fleet has sent a request for reinforcements to their nearest garrison. If our calculations are correct, a much larger fleet will arrive within 2 weeks." Vargas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the icy climate. "Do we know how large this garrison is?" "Based on their fleet compositions in the last battle," Khan replied grimly, "we're looking at hundreds of ships, maybe more." Preparing for the next wave. Back at the Global Command Center, Commander Sarah Blake listened to Vargas' report with mounting concern. The victory they had fought so hard for had only bought them a temporary reprieve. The full might of the Arcanist Dominion was now focused on Earth. "We have 2 weeks," Sarah said, addressing the room. 2 weeks to prepare for the largest invasion this planet has ever seen. I need updates from every division. Patel, what's the status of our defenses? Lieutenant Raj Patel tapped at his console, bringing up a holographic map of Earth. "We're rebuilding as fast as we can. Railgun platforms are at 50% capacity, and we've managed to restore some of the orbital satellites. But it's not enough. If they bring the fleet we're expecting, we'll be overwhelmed." Dr. Vargas spoke up. "We're working on something new, a way to use their own debris against them. The Nemesis EMP knocked out most of their fleet's electronics, but it also left fragments of their ships in orbit. If we can weaponize those fragments, we might have a chance to hold them off." Sarah's eyes lit with interest. "Explain." Vargas pulled up a schematic. "We're developing a system to remotely launch debris fields from orbit into calculated trajectories. Think of it as weaponized space junk. It's crude, but it could be highly effective against their larger ships." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "And work with the submarine fleet to enhance our underwater capabilities. We'll need every advantage we can get." A galaxy awakens. As Earth braced for the coming storm, the ripple effects of their defiance spread across the galaxy. On distant planets under Arcanist rule, the story of humanity's resistance inspired uprisings. On the agricultural world of Talara, farmers used modified plows and irrigation equipment to dismantle the Dominion's automated patrol drones. On the mining colony of Vorgeth, workers turned explosive charges meant for digging into makeshift bombs, ambushing the Arcanist enforcers. The rebellion was spreading like wildfire, and Earth was at its heart, an unexpected ally. 3 days before the Arcanist reinforcements were due to arrive, a new signal was detected. This one was different, more refined, deliberate, and distinctly alien. The message came from the Turelians, a species that had reached out to Earth after the first battle. Sarah and Vargas watched the transmission together in the command center. The Turelian representative, a slender being with translucent skin and glowing veins, spoke in halting but clear English. "People of Earth," the being said, its voice calm but resolute, "we have witnessed your courage. We, too, have suffered under the Dominion's rule. If you will accept us, we offer our aid in the battle to come." Sarah leaned forward. "What kind of aid?" "We have ships," the Turelian replied. "They are old and not as advanced as the Dominion's fleet, but they are yours to command. We also have knowledge, weaknesses in the Dominion's strategies and technology." The room erupted into murmurs. Patil turned to Sarah. "Can we trust them?" Sarah considered the question carefully. The Turelians had reached out before, offering solidarity but no concrete assistance. Now, with the stakes higher than ever, they were offering something tangible. "We don't have a choice," she said finally. "Contact them. Tell them we accept their help. And make it clear, we stand together, or we fall together." A precarious alliance. Within hours, the first Turelian ships arrived in Earth's orbit. They were smaller than the Arcanist vessels, their designs more organic, almost as if they were living creatures. Despite their age, they moved with surprising agility. Sarah met with the Turelian envoy aboard the Unity, Earth's newly commissioned diplomatic vessel. The envoy, a being named Velinar, explained their plan. "The Dominion's strength lies in its overconfidence," Velinar said, its glowing veins pulsing faintly as it spoke. "They rely on overwhelming force to intimidate their enemies. But if we can disrupt their formation, sow chaos among their ranks, they will falter." "And you think your ships can do that?" Sarah asked. Velinar inclined its head. "We cannot match their firepower, but we can outmaneuver them. With your weapons and our knowledge, we can level the playing field." The calm before the storm. As the countdown to the Dominion's arrival neared its end, Earth's defenders worked tirelessly. Railgun platforms were reinforced, Satellite debris fields were calibrated for launch, and Tyrillian ships integrated into the planetary defense grid. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Unity, watching the combined fleet in orbit. Beside her, Velinar spoke quietly. "Do you believe we can win, Commander Blake?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "I believe we have to. Winning isn't just about survival. It's about sending a message that no empire, no matter how powerful, can crush the will of those who refuse to be conquered." Velinar regarded her with something akin to admiration. "Perhaps your defiance will inspire more than just rebellion. Perhaps it will inspire hope." Sarah turned to face the alien envoy, her expression firm. "Then let's make sure the galaxy hears us." The final hours. As the first signs of the Dominion's reinforcements appeared on the edges of the solar system, Earth's forces went to full alert. Submarines slipped into deeper waters, railguns locked onto their targets, and Tyrillian ships formed a defensive perimeter. In the Global Command Center, Sarah gave her final orders. "This is it," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "We've faced them before, and we've beaten them. Now we do it again. But this time, we're not fighting alone." The room erupted into cheers, but Sarah's focus remained on the tactical display. The battle to come would be unlike anything Earth had faced before. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity would fight. Humanity would endure. And, if necessary, humanity would prevail.